Many people spend years speaking to God through prayer, affirmations and inner requests, yet their life keeps answering in familiar ways. Over time, a quiet confusion settles in. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that divine response follows a precise inner law, and when that law is understood, communication with God becomes simple and direct. God is already responding to every human being through the movement of life itself. Circumstances, repeated patterns, and inner impulses are all part of that response. What shapes the direction of this response is the way a person speaks inwardly, because inner speech carries the deepest instruction. Yogananda taught that prayer becomes effective when thought, feeling, and identity move together as a single current. When a person speaks from that inner unity, life begins to reorganize naturally. Situations shift, opportunities align, and outcomes arrive with a sense of rightness rather than struggle. This happens because consciousness responds to clarity, and clarity forms when inner speech comes from settled understanding. In this video, you will learn how to speak inwardly in the way Yogananda described, where intention carries authority and words arise from alignment rather than effort. By the end, you will understand how to speak so that fulfillment follows as a lawful response, calm, precise, and unavoidable. Stay with this till the end, because once this way of speaking becomes clear, communication with God stops feeling abstract and starts functioning as a living, immediate reality. Most people follow a sincere daily routine. They wake up, repeat affirmations, visualize better circumstances, and speak their desires inwardly with hope and effort. They try to stay positive, they try to believe, and they try to remain patient. Yet after weeks, months, and sometimes years, life continues to respond in familiar ways, creating the feeling that something deeper is missing. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that human communication with the divine happens on more than one level at the same time. While the surface mind speaks through words and images, a deeper layer of consciousness speaks continuously through emotional memory, expectation, and identity. Both messages travel together, and the deeper one carries greater authority because it reflects what the person truly lives as reality. This is why repetition alone does not change outcomes. A person may speak desire with the mouth and imagination, while the deeper self speaks hesitation, uncertainty, or unresolved experience. These layers do not cancel each other. They simply create a mixed instruction. Life responds to the combined signal with exact accuracy, even when the surface intention feels sincere. Yogananda taught that prayer becomes effective when inner life moves in one direction, without inner division. When thought, feeling, and self-image agree, the message becomes clear. When they differ, the response reflects that inner complexity. This is not a judgment, and it is not a personal shortcoming. It is the mechanics of how consciousness communicates with its source. Once this is understood, frustration begins to dissolve. The problem no longer feels personal or mysterious. It becomes practical and workable. When a person learns to recognize what the deeper self is expressing, communication with God becomes precise, and response begins to feel consistent and intelligible. In spiritual law, speaking happens continuously, even when a person sits in complete silence. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that every human being transmits an inner message at all times through their state of consciousness. Thoughts, emotional certainty, expectations, and identity together form a living signal that moves outward into life. This inner speech carries instruction through feeling more than through words. A person may remain outwardly quiet, yet their inner state communicates confidence, hesitation, peace, or tension with complete clarity. Yogananda taught that consciousness expresses itself through vibration, and vibration carries meaning without needing sound. God responds to this inner coherence as an intelligent presence. When the inner state is settled and unified, response follows that order. When the inner state carries mixed signals, life reflects that mixture faithfully. This response happens automatically because consciousness recognizes itself through coherence. As this understanding deepens, spiritual practice becomes grounded and practical. Prayer, intention, and inner focus begin to work as natural communication rather than ritual. A person starts recognizing that every moment carries speech, and that clarity within creates clarity without. This realization forms the foundation for learning how to speak in a way that fulfillment can follow. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that fulfillment follows inner authority. When a person speaks from a settled inner position, reality responds with precision. This position forms through clarity of identity, emotional certainty, and alignment of will. The quality of inner speech shapes response because it reveals where a person is standing inwardly. Asking arises from a state of seeking, while declaring arises from a state of recognition. Declaration carries the feeling of arrival even before circumstances shift. Yogananda taught that divine law responds to recognition because recognition reflects unity with the creative source. When inner speech carries that recognition, fulfillment begins moving without friction. Inner authority does not come from force or self-importance. It forms quietly when a person understands their place within divine intelligence. This authority feels calm, grounded, and stable. Words spoken from this state carry weight because they reflect inner coherence rather than emotional urgency. Certainty alters how time responds. When inner speech settles into clarity, response accelerates naturally. Delay dissolves because the instruction becomes simple and complete. As this understanding deepens, a person begins realizing that changing inner position changes how life answers. Later in this video, you will see how this position can be shifted consciously and practiced with consistency. Every human being carries an inner voice that speaks continuously beneath thoughts and words. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that this inner voice forms through lived experience, emotional memory, and repeated self-understanding. It speaks quietly, yet it carries authority because it represents what a person accepts as true about themselves and life. This deeper voice sends instruction through feeling rather than logic. Past experiences leave emotional impressions, and those impressions shape expectation. When a person speaks a desire inwardly, that desire travels alongside these expectations. The combined message reaches life as a single instruction, shaped more by emotional certainty than by spoken intention. Belief forms through familiarity, not through reasoning. A person may intellectually agree with an idea, yet emotionally live from a different understanding. Yogananda taught that consciousness moves according to what feels real within, because feeling anchors awareness. Inner speech that carries emotional agreement shapes response naturally and consistently. When inner agreement forms, communication becomes clear. The moment thought, feeling, and self-understanding align, the inner message stabilizes. That stability becomes the real switch that allows prayer to function with clarity and effectiveness. Paramhansa Yogananda described prayer as a meeting point between human will and divine intelligence. In his teachings, prayer carries power when devotion and understanding move together. This form of prayer arises from alignment with a higher order rather than emotional impulse. Yogananda emphasized that will gains strength through stillness. When the mind becomes calm and centered, intention gathers coherence. In that state, prayer carries the clarity of purpose and the steadiness of trust. This steadiness allows divine intelligence to respond through natural channels. Inner stillness sharpens certainty. As agitation settles, awareness becomes clear and focused. Yogananda taught that certainty forms quietly in this space, without effort or strain. Prayer spoken from this state carries authority because it reflects harmony with the creative intelligence governing life. These teachings come from a lineage tested through direct experience. They were practiced, refined, and transmitted as practical wisdom. When understood and applied, they restore prayer to its rightful place as conscious cooperation with divine law. Inner consistency forms the foundation of effective communication with life. When inner speech, emotional state, and self-identity agree, a clear signal emerges. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that consciousness responds to resonance, and resonance forms through harmony within. Consistency creates coherence. Thoughts align with feeling, feeling aligns with expectation, and expectation aligns with identity. This alignment produces a stable inner posture that reality can respond to accurately. Life mirrors this coherence through orderly movement and meaningful outcomes. As coherence strengthens, fulfillment accelerates naturally. Response feels smooth because the instruction carries unity. Yogananda taught that divine law operates with precision when inner life becomes organized and settled. This understanding prepares the ground for learning how to establish that inner consistency deliberately and sustain it in daily life. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that declaration emerges from recognition. When a person recognizes something inwardly as real, their language changes on its own. Words begin to carry certainty because they rise from identity rather than effort. Declaration forms when inner understanding settles into a stable sense of truth. This way of speaking feels calm because it does not depend on emotional charge. There is no urgency inside it. The inner state already holds the feeling of arrival, and speech simply expresses that inner knowing. Yogananda taught that when awareness rests in clarity, intention flows naturally, without tension. As identity shifts, language follows automatically. A person who recognizes themselves as aligned with divine intelligence begins speaking from that alignment. The words reflect wholeness and assurance because they arise from a settled inner position. This shift marks the moment when prayer begins functioning as a creative act rather than a repeated request. God responds to wholeness. Paramhansa Yogananda described this posture as inner completeness, where awareness rests in a sense of unity rather than separation. This posture forms when a person experiences themselves as connected to the source of life itself. In this state, fulfillment follows recognition naturally. When awareness accepts something as already true inwardly, reality begins adjusting around that acceptance. Yogananda taught that recognition aligns the individual will with divine will, allowing response to unfold with precision. Silence strengthens this inner posture. As mental noise settles, clarity deepens. In silence, intention gathers strength without force. Words spoken from this space carry weight because they emerge from inner stillness. This posture forms the foundation of effective spiritual communication. Speaking in a way that allows fulfillment to unfold begins with stillness. Paramhansa Yogananda emphasized the importance of settling the mind before forming intention. In stillness, awareness gathers coherence and emotional certainty stabilizes. From this settled space, fulfillment is felt inwardly before it appears outwardly. Awareness experiences completion as a present reality. When speech arises from this inner completion, words carry identity rather than longing. Language flows naturally from recognition of being. After speaking inwardly from this state, attention relaxes, expectation softens, and awareness remains open. This release allows divine intelligence to arrange response through natural movement. Yogananda taught that when inner alignment is complete, fulfillment follows its own rhythm, guided by law rather than effort. Paramhansa Yogananda explained that time responds to inner certainty. When inner speech carries clarity and agreement, the movement of life becomes smooth and responsive. Delay appears when inner communication carries complexity, and speed appears when that communication becomes simple and unified. Inner resistance forms through scattered intention. When thought, feeling, and expectation move in different directions, response unfolds gradually as those layers reorganize. As certainty settles inwardly, these layers align, and movement accelerates naturally. Yogananda taught that divine law responds immediately to coherence, because coherence carries a complete instruction. When fulfillment arrives from this state, it feels natural and fitting. There is no shock or disbelief, only recognition. The outcome feels like the next logical step rather than an interruption. This experience grounds spiritual practice in understanding rather than imagination, allowing clarity to replace speculation. Inner authority depends on stability. Small inconsistencies inside awareness soften the strength of inner speech. Subtle doubts often appear as passing thoughts, emotional hesitation, or familiar self-stories that quietly shape expectation. Emotional pauses influence instruction. When awareness hesitates emotionally, that hesitation travels with intention. Self-image also plays a role. A person who views themselves as uncertain or unprepared naturally speaks from that identity. Yogananda explained that identity forms the base from which will operates. Correction begins with recognition. When a person notices hesitation, awareness returns to clarity through presence and understanding. Authority strengthens as identity aligns with inner truth. This process unfolds gently and steadily, guided by attention rather than pressure. Inner authority grows through consistent attention. Yogananda emphasized simple daily alignment as the foundation of spiritual strength. In the morning, awareness settles briefly before intention forms. This establishes clarity at the start of the day. Throughout the day, attention returns periodically to inner tone. Awareness notices how thoughts and feelings carry instruction. This recognition keeps inner speech steady and coherent. In the evening, reflection allows awareness to settle again, integrating experience calmly. Through this rhythm, inner speech becomes stable and confident. Authority develops naturally as alignment deepens. Over time, speaking inwardly from clarity becomes effortless, forming the basis for consistent and meaningful response. When inner speech settles into clarity, the first changes appear internally. Thought becomes quieter, emotion steadies, and intention feels resolved before action begins. There is less inner negotiation and more ease in decision. Awareness feels collected rather than scattered, and attention rests naturally in the present moment. Externally, life begins to respond with fewer complications. Events align without strain, conversations resolve smoothly, and outcomes unfold with appropriate timing. Responses arrive without urgency, and movement feels guided rather than pushed. Fulfillment carries a calm quality, as though life is cooperating rather than being persuaded. This way of speaking inwardly does not produce dramatic emotional highs. It creates a sense of completion that feels ordinary and grounded. Satisfaction arises quietly, and stability replaces anticipation. Paramhansa Yogananda reminded seekers that divine intelligence operates through recognition. When awareness aligns with truth internally, fulfillment follows as a natural expression of unity. Prayer becomes an acknowledgement of what is already held within consciousness. Responsibility in this understanding carries no pressure. It rests in awareness rather than effort. As recognition deepens, cooperation with divine intelligence becomes effortless. The individual does not force outcomes but participates in their unfolding with clarity and trust. This realization leaves the seeker steady and empowered. Inner speech becomes an expression of alignment, and life responds as a reflection of that harmony. If this teaching resonates with you, write one word in the comments describing what you choose to speak into existence. This shared intention creates a collective field of clarity and purpose. Many watch silently, absorbing quietly. Whether you comment or reflect inwardly, you are part of this journey. Each presence strengthens the shared exploration of inner alignment. Thank you to all Bonfire Tales channel members for supporting this space of reflection and understanding. Your presence sustains the depth of these teachings. If you feel aligned with this journey, consider subscribing to Bonfire Tales for continued explorations into inner clarity and spiritual wisdom. You are also welcome to join our WhatsApp community, where reflections and insights continue beyond the video. May your inner speech remain steady, clear, and aligned, and may life respond with the same quiet harmony.